Welcome back to another episode of Buckle Up, an ultra running conversation with Simon and Brian and Nora today. Welcome to the show, Nora.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back. Obviously, you know the format of the show. Nora is a longtime listener, also the spouse of Simon, as well as she's got a great story for us tonight, I think. I think it's a great story. We'll find out how it went.
Will.
But we'll go back to our regular banter and our intro as we're including Nora. So, Nora, how are your knees tonight?
Actually, my knees are doing pretty well. My hamstrings are very tight, and my toes are filled with blisters. But other than that, I'm doing pretty well.
Ah, the well-earned 100-mile suffering.
Yes, these feel like badges because I don't have a buckle, but I do have these badges of honor.
That's
I'll
right.
get, I'll get
That's
you a
right.
buckle. I ordered it.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
So, and how are your knees? How are both of your knees?
Simon can go first.
Yeah, I mean, my knees are fine. I put them to test this weekend. Spoiler alert, we have Nora today because we ran 100 mile together, self-support. We ran it a la 2020 style, early pandemic style, where you just go in the park and you do it by yourself. So that's what we did over the weekend. It was for my birthday, but also it was a bigger story also for Nora being her first 100 mile. But how about yourself, Brian? How are your knees?
My knees are well. I am recovering well. Actually, I was just telling Nora offline that training's going well. I am kind of getting back into the groove. There's something about Colorado and daylight savings that just kind of sets the next stage for me. Like I'm already track season started. We're getting late afternoons. It just barely got dark here. Well, probably about an hour ago, but it got dark here. Obviously, an hour later. But training's going well, so I'm kind of enjoying it. Of course, I only got the hour this week, but just a big weekend and all sorts of stuff going on with the family. Last volleyball competition this past weekend, as well as our last dance competition for a little bit. So a little breathing room and a little more focus on track and summer planning and my own events. So it's kind of it's coming around. It's slowly getting warmer.
Yeah, and it's coming up fast for you, right? I mean, you're starting the Grand Slam in less than 3 months, right?
Yes, this weekend was exactly 3 months out. So I don't know, just shy of 90 days at this point for Old Dominion on June the 7th. And we're trying to make arrangements for that. We're trying to figure out who's going where and how we're going to get there. So I might take one of my kiddos with me, and if the whole family doesn't go, but we're trying to figure all that out. So yeah, lots of logistics and those kinds of things. I do have a marathon in May, a road marathon that I'll be running, another little test of the legs, but otherwise I'm getting some good training in. And, I always mention that track's around and I'm really excited about track, but I just can't get the workouts in I need to get in with the track team. Like even tonight, I was supposed to run for about 75 minutes, an easy recovery run, and I only got 45 minutes in. It's fine for a recovery run, but I always take a couple of days to kind of remember that I can't get my interval workouts with the track team. It just doesn't work. So I need to do it first and then go to track. I got to separate the two. So a learning curve, like always, but that's where I'm at. And you guys just did, like you had mentioned, Simon, a big birthday weekend. Gosh, are you 28, is it?
Roughly. Yes, roughly.
Roughly.
I
Gosh,
mean,
I didn't
Nora
think-
has been 29 for a while. That's been a running joke between us. When we started dating, I think she was lying about her age a little bit just to look like she was under 30. But she'll say that, no, I was not lying. So, yeah.
We need the sound effects, the butt bump, because that was a running joke.
Nice.
All right, so a birthday weekend. Nora, you did your first 100. It was you told me offline it was a little impromptu. You want to kind of give us? Well, let's back up even before we talk about this weekend and jump right into this weekend, because I think the last time you were on the show, you were doing a recap of your 2024. I think that was right around the new year, if I'm not mistaken. And we had some some issues at the end of last year, or you did specifically. I did too, so maybe we did, but separately. But you were injured and you were working through the process. You were doing some physical therapy and you were kind of coming out of the hole. So what's the story after the new year? What's been going on since then?
Yeah. So exactly to your point, Brian, I was still just the beginning of recovering from an injury, still just beginning to run again. It had been a little while of PT. I had been 2, 3 months off of running totally. So the start of 2020, wasn't sure what my goals were, feeling really frustrated about an injury. And honestly, I think the past 6 months for Simon and I have been a pretty intense time. And this ankle thing wasn't the only health issue I had, and happy to speak to that at like another time when I'm sort of through the woods. But ultimately, I sort of came to the conclusion that I'm getting through the ankle injury. I am moving and running, and I am antsy to do something and antsy to move and feel good and do something cool, but also looking for no pressure, also not sure how to line up calendars well. And so sort of suddenly, maybe just a couple weeks ago, just felt like wondering, like dreaming about what kind of adventure I could have, prove what this body can do. As I'm really just building a foundation, I'm not quite 100-mile ready yet, but I still think I was just really, I guess antsy is one word, but I think impatient is probably a better word. I think, Brian, when we first met you, it was, back in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a couple months after that I attempted my first 100-miler at Javelina, and I DNF'd at mile 80. And I think I had a little bit of that felt pretty heartbroken for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I struggled to get back out in there. And so it's always been, I know I want to do a 100-miler, not sure when, but I think the injury and working through that, just from the past year, I realized 2025, I need to just do something. And so I actually asked Simon, I think Simon, it was like a week or two ago. I just was asked how you would feel about having a little local adventure, the two of us doing an ultra, maybe attempting 100 together over the weekend. And you did not hesitate. You just immediately said, yeah, I'm game. And it worked out perfectly for your birthday. Am I getting the story right,
Yeah,
Simon?
I mean, it's a convoluted way to say it, but I think a few things happen. Like Nora mentioned, that there's definitely the injury of ankle that had been a dragging issue, but there's been other more recent stuff, and that has also affected my own calendar. I was supposed to race
Yeah.
a Monster 300 at the beginning of April, so of course March I was not supposed to race at all. That was the plan. So last minute was like, well, all of a sudden we have the opportunity to have some adventure, and one of the options was to do 100-mile by ourselves, and one of the reason was to make sure we could have all the time we wanted. If it takes 48 hours, fine, we'll do 48 hours. If we want to stop at 100K, we'll stop at 100K. So that's why we kind of said, yeah, let's do it. And that was decided very much last minute, because I also registered for other races that are coming up. But yeah, it was a great way to spend some time together and see what we can do, without the stress and the pressure of cutoff and always having to kind of perform. Also, we're at home, so we can really adjust things, and that's kind of how it went about. I didn't necessarily want myself to run 100-mile, but I wanted to support her, and I felt that one of the best way would be to be with her the whole way, instead of just sitting in the car and waiting and eating popcorn or something.
Yeah.
Nora, let's go back to your ankle for a second, Nora. Gosh, I think it was June or July, if I'm not mistaken, but it was on Mont Blanc, on the trip around Mont Blanc. You had sprained your ankle, or like a severe sprain, not like a little oops type of thing,
Yeah, there was
but you did
probably
some
some
damage to
tears
it.
even in there, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it was late August. It was doing the Tour de
Oh,
Mont Blanc with Simon and having it was twisted. You're right, it was a really bad sprain. It was not a whoopsies and then you sort of walk it off. It
hmm.
was, we had to
Well,
stop and
you tried to for like
I
15
did try
miles.
to for 18 miles. You're right. There
There you go.
was a degree of adrenaline and hope and just denial, very strong denial. But the next morning we saw it was just in completely swollen, bruised. I had multiple tears. It was a pretty
Mm.
severe sprain.
And I mean, obviously, you ran 100 miles this weekend, so it's healed enough to have completed that goal. Where's the status of it? Was it a full 100% just prior to the weekend? I mean, where you think you were like fully back to normal and maybe even stronger than you had left it before Tour de Mont Blanc?
So that's a good question. I wouldn't say I was stronger than prior to the Tour de Mont Blanc. I would say I was been slowly building a base. I would say I've completed my PT and I'm sort of at a place that's a little bit of a plateau. I'm not injured anymore, but there's still tightness. Like there's still tightness that I keep having to, you have to do your PT, folks, every day. And you have to be stubborn and persistent. And I got a little fatigued, honestly, after months of it. So I was still being in the diligence of my ankles tight, do the PT, do my runs. And my base has been slow because of that, because I'm realizing it is still slowly learning. So I've only worked up to 30 to 40 miles a week prior to the 100 miles. So I'm not at my most prepared, but I also felt like my ankle is healed. It's just slowly getting stronger.
All right. Did you have to use any support for it over the weekend?
Nope.
I
Just
mean, nothing out of the normal, just a regular sock and shoe type of thing.
just regular socks and shoes. Happy to talk more about the prep, but I did my PT stretches just before we went out there, and that was it.
All right. Well, that's great. I guess if you're listening and you followed along with Nora's story, her trajectory is just longer than mine. I have an Achilles issue that flared up in August, but really kind of reared its ugly head in the middle of October. And I've been working through it too. So I'm behind you, Nora, in the PT process. I still actually have 2 more visits left with Brian Burkhart from Range Physiotherapy, who you'll hear from pretty soon on the show as we've scheduled some recordings around that as well. But I'm a little bit behind you in the process. So, and I too am having to do my PT and heed your message of do your PT because it is paying off. And I think that is also it's not even also, it's the contributing factor on how my running is coming along now. Of course, the weather's changing and those things are coming around, but it's because I've been doing the PT and I've been doing it properly, according to Brian.
Yeah, and I think this, back to your question about it, like, did I feel stronger or prepared? I think I felt strong enough to just do a 100-mile at my own pace. Just to Simon's point, I'm not racing. I was not racing 100
Mhm.
miles. I was not chasing cutoffs. I was not doing challenging terrain. I wanted something that was feasible. We could talk more through our process of how we picked where we picked and all the steps toward making this happen. But ultimately, yeah, I felt ready to try a big challenge, whatever that may be. I was hoping for 100 miles, but honestly didn't want to like say I was doing 100 miles because I wasn't sure. Just wanted to
Mhm.
test it, move slowly, enjoy it, and push myself because I felt like my ankle was ready.
Yeah, that's great. You didn't have any pressure, or you didn't have that pressure of
No.
signing up for 100 and having the 100-mile bib on. It was just an adventure for the weekend, and you could cut it whenever you needed to. And it sounded like you had some outs. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the course or the place that I think it was a park. I saw it on Strava. It looks like you're running some sort of weird out and backs and maybe some loops around a park of some sort.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to you. Our little squiggles all over the place. That wasn't any kind of, but
No.
yeah, I could talk through. So as I was preparing for this race, I knew I wanted it to be very, as Simon said, like circa 2020. Simon's first 100-miler was around Harvard Stadium. How many times did you do it, Simon?
A lot of time, when it's that kind of distance, you don't count the number. I mean, it's impossible to know the exact size of the ring, and because of that, you're really relying on your watch to measure that, right? So I don't know. I mean, the
Yeah,
lap was
I feel like
probably 0.4 miles, so you can make the math. It's probably
Oh my
250
gosh.
times.
that
Mhm.
was wild. I feel like our Vipa showed like a recreation of your route, and it like just showed you like it just kept getting
Yeah, I
bigger.
mean,
I feel like I remember that. It was
I think
funny.
that's called Strava, but yes, it
Strava,
went
what?
on Strava. They went on my
It
Strava,
was
exactly. Yes,
2020. It was before I
yes.
understood what Strava was.
Yeah, internet existed back then. Strava existed. Yes, it's a long time ago, guys, but it's not that long ago. So yes, it was on
All right.
Strava.
So it was before I was really understanding it. But in any case, so I was imagining something very similar to that. I wanted to find something very local. Priorities for me were like easy, to be honest. Something that I didn't have to think about, fairly flat, easy terrain, and easily accessible for us in terms of where our car is and equipment for crewing. Simon reminded me of some critical factors like a bathroom being nearby. Thinking
Good
about,
call. Good call.
yeah, very good call, Simon. And then other things that could be important, like picnic table, shade, access to water. So I asked a couple folks in my running club or the running club I recently joined that's local, some ideas from them as well as others, and just scoped out a few parks, weighed the pros and cons of using a turf field like a soccer place, but realizing that would be really hectic on a Saturday. Using a park, but there's like a lot of cement. Do I want to be on concrete the whole time? which is more like a Jackpot Ultra or a little bit of across the years. It's a lot of pavement, and wondering how painful that would be. Until finally I landed on the San Elijo Lagoon. So that was the place where we were. That's where you see all our squiggles. So it's this lagoon ecological reserve that's just along the coast near where we live. And it is all trail, or almost entirely trail, which is nice in terms of how it would feel under the feet. Basically flat. And it had porta potties, which was great, because we didn't have to worry about like the park bathrooms that could be locked. Quickly, I learned that all the local parks you cannot park overnight. So they will tow you if it's between 11 to 5 a.m. So we had to have some place where we could park that was legal overnight in like a neighborhood, and wanted to think about, is there trash easily accessible, shade, etc. How technical is the terrain, how hilly. And what's cool about this San Elijo Lagoon is it has multiple loops you can try. So among the loops, the one I was thinking of primarily was this 3-mile loop. So it's just, so there's nature reserve sort of center, and then you can do loops again and again. That's 3 miles. There's some hills that I was sort of curious about how that would feel, but that felt like a solid loop. And then there are tinier loops closer to the reserve center, which are 0.6-mile loop and then a 0.3-mile loop. The plan was the 3-mile loop. And as Simon and I jumped on there, but I won't speak to exactly what it looked like race day yet, but that is what led to what felt like the most variety, the nicest trail, a mix of things. And honestly, it felt like the most naturally beautiful place to be, with like incredible birds everywhere and trees and the views of the coast. Felt like it would have a mix of everything and interest while not being too challenging.
Yeah, if anyone is wondering in our relationship who's the overthinker, don't think about it too much. I was pretty simple. I was like, just make sure they have a toilet that is available all day and that we can park there so they don't tow our car. That's my checklist. But obviously, Nara spent a lot of work finding the best spot for it, which turned out to be actually kind of funny because there were some unexpected things there.
How far away from your house is this lagoon?
Very close. It's just one town over. It was less than 20 minutes to drive there.
Oh.
And that was definitely part of the thinking too, right? And that's not overthinking, because we're both racing. It could take more than 24 hours where we're both not sleeping. So going somewhere far where you have to drive immediately afterwards was not super exciting. So we want something that was convenient, close to home. And then I could drive myself, even though I was pretty banged up after we're running for 30 hours.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was 20 minutes or an hour. I knew you were fairly close to home, but I just, I don't know what that looks like. I don't really know your area too well. I'm not super familiar with it.
Anyone who's planning like that kind of self-support adventure, it's good to enroll some people's help, which we'll talk about later, but that's really going to help you a lot, because little things can happen and then you're in the middle of it. It just makes everything impractical. But then very quickly you realize that there's definitely a balance between something that is adventurous and exploratory and exciting, but also kind of inconvenient and complicated. And for us, it was very much last minute. Within a few days, it was like, we go out there. So we had to go for something that was as simple as possible, which is a balance, because it's not as exciting. Like to do a 0.6-mile loop, it gets repetitive.
Happy to talk to anyone for a long time about the pros and cons of various local parks and doing your own little ultra.
Nora, what is the name of your new found running group?
It is Leucadia Run Club.
Cool.
Leucadia is the town right next to us. We're in Carlsbad, Leucadia, Encinitas. It's all North County, San Diego. Started by Scott Huffman. They have runs weekly on Monday mornings at 6:30. Follow along Leucadia Run Club on Instagram. They're great. Bunch of great people. Highly recommend.
Awesome. So last minute you put it together. Tell me about the car. What did you load up this car? How does this car come? It's your main aid station, I'd imagine, or it's the aid station. And what does it look like? I mean, was it just filled with? Did it look like bad water?
It has
with all
4
the coolers
wheels and the steering. We just threw a bunch of shit in there.
Yeah.
Like more or less. But yeah, I think the first step was like, okay, we're doing this. When are we doing it? We decided this weekend, for all the reasons that Simon named about canceling things, wanting things to happen. His birthday, this just seemed perfect. And my lack of patience. And then it was picking a spot, and then it was the logistics. So think we planned to do and what we did was we used one of our giant coolers from the Badwater experience, which I think that was the first time we used it since Badwater. But we basically packed everything we thought we could need for an ultra. So we had in the cooler itself, like fuel up to the rim, like actually couldn't fit everything in. So, Coke, cold ramen that was already ready to go, Tailwind, like all the fuel, etc. And then the back of our car looked very much like much of our adventures over the past few summers, which is car camping. So we had the bed, like the mattress pieces and the blankets laid out and ready to go if we wanted to take a nap. And just on top of it was sitting our cooler and some gear. And then we both had like separate gear spaces on either side of the car. So the back was where we would open it up. We parked on the side as we would run along so we could just run right off to the car because luckily every step counts. We're not getting off of race course. This is every single step just moving toward the car counts toward this 100-miler.
Right.
So it was all fine. Just didn't want it to be too difficult. But we did weigh the option of actually having our cooler out along the course to grab things really quickly. And we made even a sign on top of the cooler to say, like, please don't touch this. We need this. But we ended up saying, like, whatever, let's just keep it all in the car. So we would just go back and forth to the car as needed. But because we were choosing a loop that was not super short, it was, a little bit longer. The plan was also to wear things. So we weren't just going to be totally free of nothing like you might see at some other folks that are doing a self-supported and I can just grab stuff and maybe walk with it. But we were thinking I was still going to have my running vest and have like one bottle with me and a little bit of food. So I didn't need immediate support. But that was the plan, is we would carry some things and then intermittently go be crewed by our car.
Awesome. You also had some help, I think. I saw you thank a few friends, and why don't we give a shout out to them and maybe talk about their roles and what they helped you guys with?
Yeah, so it being impromptu, I wasn't sure how to ask for support because, as you can see, I also really did not want any pressure on on doing this and what was expected of me. But I really like the idea of having support, and also I'm not used to having support for my races. Not a big racer still. So I think, actually, not to be off topic, but Brian, when you helped to crew me at Javelina, like I still was like confused that you were helping. And you were so nice. You were like, you're like sweat. There's a lot of salt on you. Do you need like you need salt pills and you need to get up? And I think I would just want to be like, oh, Brian, like everything's good. Like I just still not used to asking for the support. So I tried to, Simon and I just sort of casually, like, just putting it out there. Hey, everyone, like, anyone want to join us locally here? Feel free to join. DM us if you want some of the details. So we did get some support from the local community. First visitor was Rob, who is like a friend of one of Simon's colleagues at work. Sorry, it's the husband of one of Simon's colleagues at work who is getting into running. And he joined us just for a few miles along the course. And then later on, it was our friend Andrea. So thank you, Andrea. She came by. She's not a runner, definitely not, but walked a little bit with us and brought us French fries, which was very nice.
I did see the French fries in the console.
Yes, that was very kind. Then it was two guys, Tim and Jake, who came at night and supported us at night, who I appreciate because really helped me sort of in the halfway point, sort of around 50 miles to 60 to it. Like it was for a good amount. They helped keep me with a rhythm of still running. And then finally in the morning, it was Scott, the one who started the Lucadia Run Club. He came in the morning as I was breaking down, and he was very kind. And then I later said, you don't have to come back and help me to the end. I think he had planned to just help a little bit and then come back. And I said, I'm crying, so don't come back. It's okay. I'll finish. We'll talk about the ending later. But shout out to all those people. They were incredibly supportive. So thank you. That was a surprise.
Yeah, and it worked out pretty well because we really didn't plan necessarily for anyone to actually crew, and nobody, crewed. We needed to be fairly independent. So we didn't ask people to come at a specific time or cover a specific period or anything. Even coordinating was difficult because service was not really happening there. So we just put it out there and then people showed up at the perfect time, which was nice to have company. But in the end, we need to be independent also and have everything in the car, like Nora mentioned.
So it wasn't real crewing, like they weren't like making
it was more pacing. I would describe it as pacing. The goals of crewing that we had was Andrea bringing some fries, but otherwise everyone else was pacing. They ran with us.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Excellent. Let's talk about, so there's no 4 a.m. starting, I don't think, which is kind of nice too. So what time did you guys get started? What did that look like?
Yeah, it was another thing that I was overthinking with Simon. I wanted to sleep in a little bit, but not too much because I wanted to enjoy as much daylight as possible. So we got ready and we're running by 6:40 was when our race started. So we left the house by 6:10, a little after 6 a.m. Sun was already coming up.
17, I think, 6:17,
Okay.
maybe 6:16.
But
But we wanted to leave at 6:12, but like I needed to poo poo and it took a
You're a
little
little
longer.
behind
So
schedule.
I know.
always.
So it's my bad.
But so
Yeah.
we showed up, pulled up to a parking spot, and started the watch at 6:40. It was beautiful. We were feeling great. You're right. I was not sleep deprived. I felt fresh and ready. The sun was coming up, and that was when we met our first hiccup within the first mile. The funny story is we started around the 3 mile loop. The plan was, I think initially, we were sort of talking about the plan honestly as we were going. So we're like, okay, so there's this 3 mile loop. If we ever want to get separated, like, Nora, you just keep going clockwise, and if I, and then I'll go counterclockwise to find you, because 3 miles is still long enough that you don't see them from far away exactly. You can lose them. So, but the 3 mile loop was still the plan. So we were on our way on the 3 mile loop, headed out toward the beach, that part of the loop, and we immediately hit a flooded path. So it had been raining for a few days in San Diego. Didn't think about that, and when I tested the trail, it was before the rain, but we quickly realized it was incredibly flooded. So we couldn't continue the loop, so we paused and turned around and kept going the other way, so sort of doing like a C.
Yeah, and for people to realize, we don't mean that like there was some water on the trail. We mean that the trail was literally like under probably like a foot or two of water, like for probably 200 yards. So it was literally closed, and basically you would walk in the middle of a lake if you had to pass that. So it was just not feasible, not just to not get feet wet, but just not feasible, unfortunately. So, oops.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, there were ducks just wading through it, like it was very much an extension of the lagoon.
Yeah, and maybe, it's okay to get your feet wet in the 100-miler, but maybe not 33 times on a 3-mile loop.
No,
Yeah,
it
and
was
for like 200
not.
feet of water, it's yeah, it's
Yeah,
not great.
yeah, it was.
It would be tiring
Yeah,
even just to do that.
yeah, even
Walking
one time
through
it was.
water. Oops.
Yeah. So whoops. So we started to go the other way around, and other parts of the trail were flooded. So other parts that I had counted on that were flat were now flooded, and so we suddenly had to go up more hills. There were other like parts of the trail I didn't expect to, so suddenly it became a little bit more challenging and technical. And then we realized when we came to the other side of the sea, we would have to circle back to get to the car, which added up to something like 6 miles, a little less than 6 miles of a loop, which doesn't feel great, especially when you want this to be very easily supported and not carry so much. So start to rethink things, and that's where you see the course on our Strava look a little kooky. So we did the sea, we kind of went back and forth around that. What do we do? Then we went sort of past the lagoon further inland, just straight, just because there's various trails that you can just take off. But, one direction, the trail took us very quickly to the road, and then a bike lane, and then no lane. So then we were just in traffic, so we turned around, went the other direction along the lagoon inland, and that became beachy and deep sand, also not as much fun. So we turned around, and then I finally decided, Simon, I think let's do the nature reserve loop, which is 0.6 miles. And like, let's do logistically let's stick around there for a while and see how it feels. And that became our core loop as a result after maybe like 20 miles of running. Do you think that was when we switched, Simon?
Yeah, we explored for about 20 miles until deciding that that's enough anyway. We just need to be close to the car, so we stick to that small loop.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see it now in Strava. I'm in here playing around. Yeah. You guys look like you tried every feasible option and kept getting turned around here and there, and then you decided on this little short park loop, and then like maybe you did a figure eight on it sometimes, or you went through the middle of it, like in the 0.3 loop.
So if you didn't think, you can do an even smaller loop. There's the 0.6 loop, which is already significantly shorter than our plan for the
0.6 and
3 mile
0.3,
loop.
yeah.
And then the other one is a 0.3, which you can cut right through to do an even shorter loop.
All right, that's a lot.
Yeah. But luckily, our car was parked right there. The porta potties were right there. Trash and recycling right there. It was easy trail the whole time and basically flat.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a beautiful view. And a part of why I chose there was I wanted a beautiful view, and that view was still lovely.
Besides the flooded area, which we could assume the surface, but this half mile loop or 0.6 mile loop, what was the surface of it? The running surface?
It's like dirt, like a combination of dirt, hard packed sand, I
Okay.
think.
I
Simon,
didn't
is
know if
that
it was
about
like a
right?
concrete path or something.
Yeah, I would describe it as a non-technical, maybe four abreast kind of trail that is
Mm-hmm.
packed dirt.
Yeah,
Like
it
a
was,
man-made trail, though. Yeah. Like a
yes. Yeah. So,
man-made lawnmower with trail of sorts, or maybe even bigger than a lawnmower, but something like that.
It was
yeah, a
so
little bigger.
non-technical that I could have mountain bike on it, basically.
I
But
don't
yeah, it
know.
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't cement or concrete. It wasn't hard, something that would feel really painful. Luckily, it was trail.
All right, so you wind up running laps and loops of this park. What other events happened throughout the course of this 100 miles? So you already mentioned
Yeah.
flooding in the first mile. Where else does this go?
Yeah, I'd say the first quarter of this, the first 20-ish miles were exploring, troubleshooting, figuring it out, making our own course. And then when we were like, all right, let's be in this like 0.6 mile loop, Simon had this suggestion earlier about, hey, at some point we can try this timing of pacing, like this sort of pacing strategy, which he had done at long haul. He's talked about it before.
Why
Yeah.
don't you tell us how did you feel in these first 20 miles? How did it go? What was
Oh, I
going
mean,
through your mind?
oh yeah. I mean, the first 20 miles, I was still in the like bliss part. I was still in the, oh, this is so cool. This is so fun. We were at such an easy pace. I could talk. I was trying not to think too much about all that's ahead of me and just trying to be in the moment. But my legs felt good. My ankle felt good. My body felt good. The only thing I started to notice as like step one concern was my stomach started to hurt just a little bit. I was still fueling well, but the sun was intense. I know I don't necessarily do that well in heat. So I was sort of watching for that and sort of modifying, starting to slip into using Coca-Cola a little earlier than I might have, switching to some solid food a little earlier. But outside of that, it was just still feeling pretty good and pretty pumped for the first
Were
quarter.
you nervous?
Yes, I am a nervous person. Have you not noticed this? Yeah, I'm an anxious person. But I would say, and I told Simon this at the beginning, my excitement and anxiety were about equal. So both were pretty high.
So what were you concerned about?
I was concerned about not finishing, even though I had no finish in sight. It was just all in my head. But I knew I had this goal of 100 miles, and I had this fear of repeating my DNF from Javelina. And so my biggest fear was that like the dark thoughts that happen to you, whatever the pain cave, whatever it is, would be too hard and too intense that I wouldn't complete my goal, which was to finally get to 100 miles on foot in one go.
Sounds like you attacked it in like bite-sized chunks, essentially, like because you didn't. I mean, of course, it's in the back of your head that you want to do 100, and maybe you won't hit the goal, but there is no real like 100-mile finish line. It could have been 100K this time, and you could have attempted this in a month again or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still have like really wanted to do it, and I felt like, all right, we're preparing for it now. Some people know it. I'm like, this is the time to do it. I think I kept saying in my head, like, this is the time to do it. When am I going to do it again? And one thing that I noticed, so when you do this tiny little loop, the type of people that are doing this tiny little loop from this nature preserve, like a diversity of people, like often really little kids that are like screaming and crying. They don't want to go on a hike. That is a 0.6 mile loop, flat loop. Absolutely do not. You also have a lot of people that are elderly, that are it's an accessible route, so that's really great. People can have walkers and other tools to help them walk. And I didn't expect that to be a part of what I was thinking about, but I was like, fuck Nora, like, oh, sorry, like this is the time to do it. Like this is how lucky am I to be able to run? How lucky am I to be able to move? Like, don't
I should have
let
recorded you at that time to see if that was the word you were using. Especially the last 20, but we'll get there. But yeah, and
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you came in with the mindset that, oh, maybe I just do 100K. I think it was pretty
No.
clear to me the 100 mile is going to happen. The question is, how long will it take? And going with the mindset of, and I think that's what you changed compared to Javelina was, I'll keep going no matter what, no matter how long it takes, no matter if I need to sleep, if I need to take, just walking the whole time, going home. But this is happening right now. and let's not get too negative, and changing your mindset a little bit, removing the pressure.
You're right. That was my mindset. And I was still a tiny voice in the back of my head saying, God, please don't screw it up. Like, please do this. Don't give up, Nora.
If I could back up to 2021 at Javelina,
Yeah.
what was if you don't mind sharing with us, what was the reasoning for the DNF? Were you cut off on time? Were you just feeling like garbage? Were you in the bad mental space? Can
I
you
think it was bad
refresh
mental
us on that?
space. Yeah, it's a good question. So my first and only 100-mile DNF, so my only attempt, Javelina 2021, I was feeling pretty good until my stomach started hurting. I had not had the practice I now have in fueling, but I was vomiting quite a bit at mile 45 and struggled to refuel at all that from then on. And at a certain point, stopped being able to take water in. And so it slowed down to walking um, for so long. And then and it was a negative mental space. I had prepared myself for negative mental space that, oh, this is hard and I want to give up. But actually, what like flooded me were like medical worries. Something's wrong with me. I can't eat. I can't drink. My kidneys are like, I had these fears of like my body not functioning. And I was convinced I had to go get an IV. Like, it was a really wild place my mind was taking me. So I DNF'd at 81 miles. So that was after the second to last lap of Javelina. And I stormed into the medical. It was a very hard conversation between Simon and I. He was really trying to push me and support me with what I needed. He also hated seeing me in pain too, but I was like stumbling. I was just so gone. And I went into that medical tent and said, I think I need an IV. And they said, I think you might just need to lay down and we'll see from there how it goes. But I was convinced I had to DNF. So I already had turned in my bib, but I like napped for hours and ate some food and felt much better after. But I had already DNF'd. So I learned a hard lesson then that I think my pace was actually pretty fine, Simon, for Javelina.
Yeah,
That
I
was,
mean,
yeah.
it's hard to say, but yeah, I think you really got into a negative space around that fourth lap, and the whole fourth lap was kind of a slug from 60 to 81 of like, I don't want to do this, I'm in pain. But you finished the lap maybe 81 mile in 20 hours, so we had about 10 hours to do one lap, which is a lot of time. It's a lot of time, and it's also, you're not even daytime yet. What's difficult at Javelina and what really made everything happened negatively, and we'll talk about it for this one also, but it's the heat, which makes it very difficult to fuel, which makes people puke, which then you're not able to eat, and then you're just in a cycle of dehydration and low energy, and it gets in your head. Like, I think it's totally understandable that you feel worried about that, but just a few hours of rest and then a little bit of water, who knows if it would have been possible. You live, you learn, right?
Yeah.
So I know it was a while ago, and it was your only other your only other attempt at 100, not first attempt because it's your
Yeah.
first attempt, but your only other attempt at 100. So did you carry some of those same exact fears in? Like, are you going to have the mental capacity to do this? Did you carry that with you into this weekend?
To a degree, but less so. I think I carried those fears into my first return back to an ultra because I took a big break from ultras after that. I think the next one was maybe, goodness, like quite a bit later, and it was the Javelina 100K. I think like that was my redemption to get back out there because I really think I took it really hard and I was like, I love pacing. Pacing is so much fun. I love this community. Like, let me just enjoy this. I enjoy this. I'm not going to ruin this stuff for me. So I still want to enjoy this, and I still do and love crewing and pacing and being in the ultra community. But I was like, let me take a pause from racing after that. So I carried that wound and that fear into 100K. And then I realized I love 100K. You're done by the evening. This is perfect. And then did Black Canyon 100K. And then, and then there was my whole year last year, which was dabbling in 50 milers and 100Ks and really loving the 100K distance. But so the fears I carried were definitely from 2021 Javelina 100 mile. Among those was how I would do to run through the night. That was my, like, the biggest, like, I got into such a dark space running into the night at Javelina 100. So I think I was carrying that fear. But I have to say it again, that was 2021. Simon has done so many races so many recaps, so many lessons I have heard from him, from you, from our friends. I feel like I have carry some of the weight of that DNF, but I also now carry with me all of the lessons from all of you and my time in ultra running as well. Like, and they have somewhat equal weight, if not the lessons you all give me have a fair weight in my mind. I heard you, Brian. I feel like I don't even think you remember this, but I think when I recapped my DNF with you, I think you had like an offhand comment about like, oh yeah, just like sometimes you just gotta rest and eat, and then then you're fine.
Hmm.
And then you keep going. And I was like, I have to like I repeated that too. If I just need to rest and eat, that's fine. Because to your point, Simon, you're right. My mindset was I have to do this. I cannot stop no matter how long it takes. I'm doing this. And then if I just need to rest and eat, that's fine. There's no rush. So I think I was carrying some fears, but I was also carrying a lot of lessons.
Nice.
That's interesting, because I really felt that you were carrying a lot of that weight, and that is what has prevented you from even signing up for a race. And even the approach to it, to me, felt like you were not confident that you could actually do the distance. You were worried about it. But maybe I misread you.
No, that was like this fear was still there, which is why I was like, Simon, don't tell people I'm doing 100-miler. Just tell people we're doing an ultra. Like I truly, right. I wanted to remove any pressure, but I also love the community. And so I wanted people to come and I wanted to enjoy it with others. I was like, how can I make this perfect experience that is zero pressure on myself, which is ridiculous. We can always put pressure on ourselves, and it's important to like not just let anxiety win either. Just like it's okay to have expectations. It's okay to have people wanting to support you in your lot in a big goal and something that feels scary. That's okay to say out loud. But I think you're right. I was so scared of it. I didn't want to jinx it. Whatever it was, I was like, I just want it to be chill, which I'm not a chill person, but I wanted to try to be chill about it as much as I could. But you're right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty natural though. So my last race was the Moab 240. I DNF'd at mile 72 or so. Indian Creek, I think it's 72. Somebody will correct me. And I have, we just talked about it a second ago. In 3 months, I will be doing Old Dominion 100. I've completed Moab, and I've also completed a 100-miler before. So I know I'm capable of it. But there is that underlying questioning, that self-doubt. It's going to be there. It's there now, and I know by the time I get to the starting line of Old Dominion that it's still going to be there, and I'm going to be questioning, and any little twinge in my Achilles is going to be like like, is it coming back? Like, is it reoccurring? Is this happening again? Sensation. And so I think that's just natural to some level.
Yeah, I mean, that's partly why I was asking Nora, like, what were you worried about? Because I think a wisdom thing that I heard from Fanny, our friend, is that very often you're overly focused about something that will go wrong, and like I'm worried that I'm gonna have pain in my Achilles, and that's gonna make me not be able to finish Old Dominion. And next thing you know, it's because you're puking everywhere, and like your Achilles is totally fine, and you kind of got blindsided. But it's normal to come in with some specific fears that you think the challenge will be, and sometimes you're right. Like sometimes like I'm worried that, the cutoff is tight and I'll be tight with that. But sometimes it's something that really is surprising. And I feel coming in, maybe correct me, Nora, of course, but like I feel that the two things that you were really worried, besides just getting into your head, were three things. One was fueling. If it's too hot, that would be difficult. The other one was that you felt you didn't have enough mileage in training. And the other one was, how will my ankle hold up? I know it's kind of fine, but it's not 100% perfect. I still feel tightness. What will happen at 100 mile? I mean, you haven't done past 20 miles, I think, in any of our run. So there's a bit of unknown that you're like, wow, like I really need to watch out for that. But one of the things that you struggle, and we'll talk about it later, that lasted for 3 miles was none of these three things. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And
Of
you
course
didn't
I
see
do.
that one coming, but you were not excited about that when it was happening. So,
but yes, yeah.
It sounds like the nutrition was on point for the most part. Like you stayed on
In the
top of it.
beginning, yeah.
Was it?
Oh, in the beginning.
Was
Okay,
it?
all right, Simon. All right,
The
go
first
ahead.
20 mile. But can I just add one thing though? I think it's normal to be nervous about it, and it's good to be nervous, and it's good to be honest about how we failed in the past. Like there's no embarrassment about it, because I think we're all in the spectrum of overly anxious to overly confident, and you see both extreme. Like you have people that will come in a race and you see them go and it's like, dude, like you're you're gonna need to be rescued out there. Like maybe you shouldn't do that. And you have people that are more on the anxious side, especially, you had setbacks in the past. You're thinking there's no way I can do that. And then I think, Nora, to some extent, I think you're more on that side of
No.
self-doubt, and doing it this weekend hopefully was a boost in your confidence to see like, yeah, you can actually do that distance. Like, you got this. Without the proper training, you can push through the adversity and you can find solution. And I think that was really important.
Thank you. I do.
I'm proud of you.
But
I'm
yeah.
proud of you, girl. Now we'll make fun of the last 80 miles. But I struggle too, so I think it's fine.
But yes, Brian, to your point, like, nutrition was going well. Simon's right. I was concerned about the fact that I had very low mileage working up to this. So I knew I had to take it very slowly. But that doubt was there too. But shall we cross over beyond the quarter mark?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go the next quarter. So 25 to 50, roughly, guesstimate.
Yeah.
What did that look like? So I guess it'd be midday-ish, right? You started at 6:40 in the morning. Marathon probably took you 4 or 5 hours. Probably more like 5 or 6 hours, maybe, with some navigation challenges.
Yeah. And slow. So it was a little over 5 hours. I think it's like 5 hours 14. And
so
so
you're right
that was
around noon.
Yeah.
And 38 seconds.
All right, Simon.
Approximately.
Always makes fun of me when I'm hyper accurate. Okay. So it was about this time that we switched it up to change to his pacing strategy, right, Simon? That's when we changed it up to your pacing?
Yeah, more or less. I think, we were still feeling fine, but you start feeling it, right? Like, you start feeling that pace that I can hold forever. I'm starting to feel a little twinge, actually, and I don't know that I can actually hold that forever. So either you push it for as long as you can, or let's step down a little bit. And we decide to take it a little bit safer and go with the run walk strategy.
Yeah.
All right. And what did that look like specifically, like the run walk? It's probably not random. I'm pretty sure I heard in the past that it's not so just run and walk whenever you want to. So what is the strategy behind this?
Yeah, it was following Simon's run a mile, walk 2 minutes, run a mile, walk 2 minutes. That was the cycle. And so we did that for quite a while, actually. And that was a fairly solid pace. As time went on, definitely noticed my stomach starting to hurt a little bit more. Switching again over to different fueling. Again, this is getting later in the day, heat, sun, like direct sunlight, etc. And feeling it. Like, after 25 miles, you feel it. The like rush and excitement of the beginning is gone, and now you're like, okay, I'm in it, but not hopeless or negative, but just like, okay, I'm in it. So we did the run walk for a while. And we were sort of testing a little bit how much slower it would be to 50 miles. We just, had the measurement of 25 miles and sort of testing a little bit how much slower it would be. At a certain point, I started to fatigue a little bit, and I pushed Simon to like, actually, can we have another minute of rest? So it was more like a mile and then 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and that was a cycle.
Yeah, I don't think we ever did 4 minutes. I think
There's 3.
sometimes like we would adjust the amount of walking, which is totally fine. Like, the whole concept is that you're running at a pace that feels comfortable for a mile, which turns out to be faster than if you were only running. And then you start walking, and it's good that your heart rate actually goes down. Like, you don't stay in the like 170. Like, that's not sustainable. So just making sure that it goes down, and if it takes 1 more minute, you just take 1 more minute, and then you recycle again in a new cycle. But I don't think we went as far as 4 minutes, at least not at that stage.
Hairs like splitting hairs. So the 2 minutes running. So I coach a lot of athletes, and I would get this question from my athletes. They're going to be like, the 2 minutes of walking, I mean, are they the distance you cover in the 2 minutes? Are they included in the next mile? So every time your watch beeps is when or is it the new mile starts when you start running again after the 2 minutes? So it's not based on like solid miles, like mile
no cheating,
29 to 30 to 31 to 32. So
no cheating.
Know where I'm going
look,
with
Brian,
it?
I mean, tell your athlete that this rule is so freaking approximate anyway that any method that you use would be totally okay. And I think most people actually do a distance or an amount of time of running and a distance and amount of time for running, but both will be the same metric of measurement. Like, you do distance or time, like 10 minute, 2 minute, 10 minute, 2 minute. I do it differently because I feel it makes sense to measure distance for when you're running, because then you have an incentive to actually get there as soon as possible. And for the walking, I don't want to do a distance because then you would have an incentive to go as slow as possible. So I just use the time and then I just move at whatever pace feels comfortable. And
Just
the
for the
focus
record,
on these 2 minutes.
yeah, just for the record, my athlete is me. So I was just asking because I was curious.
No, for you, it's only running though, right? I mean, you're going to go sub 24 for Old Dominion. That's mostly running. So you're going to be running.
Do you think there's
no
any
walking.
benefit to switching it up? Can I walk for a mile and run for 2 minutes? You think there's any benefit to switching it up?
Well, when you're a stud like Brian, you don't need to do that. But when you're someone like us, yeah, there is huge benefit actually. And the whole point is to overall slow you down. But the 2 minutes of walking or whatever amount of time that you use, it's a perfect time to eat, to drink, to have your heart rate go lower, to look at the course, to you have time for yourself, which is great. And when you compare the impact on time, I don't know if we're stealing your thunder, Nora, but 25 to 50 there was a long break towards the end, so it's a little bit complicated, but if we had not done that, it would have been about, I think, 5:30, something like that.
It was like 15 minutes more. Yeah.
Which is nothing because like the first few miles you're going too fast anyway. So the fact that it's only 15-minute difference really shows that actually we didn't slow down by doing that. We just reshift priorities, which was helpful for fueling a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
And how did that go actually, Nora?
So it worked for a while, and those 2 minutes, you're right, it was perfect. It prompted me to eat just during those 2 minutes and drink during those 2 minutes, so I could during a time when you're not feeling good, like that was great. So you could just focus on running. It was highly motivating, and Simon led it the whole time, so it was nice for me to have him like constantly pacing me, and I didn't have to think about it. He just would be like, okay, now we're stopping. We're so close. We have this much more left. That was when he was constantly sort of really pacing me.
On a consistent course, it seems like even that the walking is like a change of muscle groups, right? So you're also like not running using the running muscles, you're using walking muscles, and just kind of giving that running muscle a break for a second or for 2 minutes.
That's very true, and that's true the other way around. Like if you're only walking, you're always using the same muscle, and sometimes jogging, even if it's like kind of a slug jog that you're almost going in the same pace as walking, sometimes it's worth switching it up so that it's changing the muscle a little bit.
Yeah. So it was going well until one of our like pit stops to the car. I was, not feeling, I just was like, I knew I was not getting enough calories. So I was like, I'm going to take a lot of Coke and a full banana, but I'm feeling good. All right, let's run. So I ran from the car, kick that off, start off that mile. And as soon as we got back on the trail, I threw up. Within maybe a minute or two, into my sunglasses.
And then the real question, Brian, is are you resetting the 10-minute, the 1 mile run from there because we took a break? Like that. These are the important questions.
Well, did you throw up for 2 minutes or not? I mean, if you threw up for 2 minutes, then you need to start running.
Yep.
I think that was one of my times where I was like, I think I need to walk for a little bit, Simon. I didn't throw up for so long. I think it was like 30 seconds of throwing up. Just like 3 bouts back to back. And then we started walking.
I'm maybe reading into it. Was it mostly the soda, It
was the soda and the banana immediately.
Blow up of like a carbonated beverage coming out.
I basically was shaking my body like a bottle of soda. And however, I think I got back to running very quickly after that because I felt really great. After you vomit, you feel fantastic, right? And I had been there at my last 100 mile. It was very deja vu. I was like, this is how I felt at mile 45. You feel great and enjoy it while it lasts because it will go away. So we got back into the rhythm of jogging and walking. And by that time, that was around the time my friend Andrea came and she had planned to give us these fries. Like it was like, that was like a boost of social support, a boost of a friendly face, until it started to get to nighttime. And that's when she was gone. And as we were heading into the night, and at that point, we made a decisive choice. It was like a little after 50 miles. We went to the car and I changed out. So tip for ladies out there or anyone wearing a sports bra, I made the deliberate choice to change out my entire outfit except for my shorts. So did not want to have any sweat, any of that going into the night where I knew I might slow down. I was thinking about all the dark places I might be. I didn't want one of those dark places to be because I was cold. And I know how much our body temperatures will change. And it does get cold at night here. It is still somewhat desert like here, so it can get a bit nippy, though I won't say that to someone who's in Colorado right now in the winter. But it gets nippy for us out here in San Diego.
Well, a great point would be, I was actually going to ask that question. What was the high of the day, temperature-wise? Just to put the perspective on like the heat. It's obviously March or something like that, the day that you did it or started it on the first day.
It
But
was
what was the high
basically
of the day?
fucking hot during the day, and
Oh,
at night
that,
it was
yeah.
cold as balls. And I know this is
Okay.
metric system, so convert to Fahrenheit if you want,
Yeah.
but that was
What-
how I would describe it.
What's the conversion
It was
rate?
hot
though? I
enough
can't-
that it was difficult to digest in the day, which led to Nora like drinking too much Coke and then puking. And at night it was enough that I was wearing all of my layers and I was cold myself. I didn't have enough layers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tutor, we also, the location we chose was next to the coast. So there was a constant coastal breeze, wind that was pretty intense. So that added to the severity of the cold at night. But just as I went to change into my winter stuff and was changing things up, we had the new Pacers arrive, 2 new ones, which was that was actually the biggest surprise because they didn't even coordinate with us. They just showed up.
Nice.
And got us at the right time.
Well,
Did
I
they
think what
coordinate
she
with you,
means is
Simon?
that they coordinate with me and then she was not involved in that. So
Just
yes,
kidding.
something
Thank
like
you.
that. Yeah.
Thank you, Simon.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
so
might have been when the soda was coming out of your nose. It might have been at that time.
well, that was it. No, it's such an interesting race. Like usually we're not really on our phones. We're not like for typical ultra races. We're not. But this is one where we're like, any point someone could be coming. I'm checking my phone if someone is. So it's like it's different sort of setup. But yeah, so they came at the night. That was great timing because I knew I could at 50 miles. You're like, oh shit, I have to do this again, and it's like hard to wrap my head around that. And I knew I was heading into the hardest part. Like I think about how Simon speaks to it, like sort of the 60 miles, like when you're in that chunk where you still have so much to do and you have done so much. And then one of my biggest fears was the nighttime running and how that would impact me and my headspace. So it was very helpful that for like the solid 10 or more miles, Tim and Jake came to pace us, Tim for a little bit longer. And they kept us on the track of running and walking. I did switch it up at that point. I was getting tired. So where you see on the Strava segment, we're like, oh, did you cut through this quite a few times? Instead of doing, I sort of asked Simon permission. So instead of doing a mile run to 2 minutes walk, I said a mile run around and then a walk that was a segment loop that is the 0.3. So we would run a mile, walk the 0.3, run a mile. And that's how we continued for another like 10 to 12 miles. And it was a chatty evening. We were talking a lot. It was great distraction. And I like actually got a second wind. So I'd say mile like 50 to 60-ish, caught a second wind. Did it feel that way to you too, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you were faster than you were before them and faster than you were after they were gone. Yes, that is an accurate description.
The foursome works really well. Gosh, I think Ryan and I did it with Thomas and Benji back in Moab, and we covered like 30 or 40 miles together, the foursome. And it was great because Ryan and I had spent so much time together on course that we were kind of tired of each other a little bit, which is natural and it just happens. And then, of course, 2 new people came in. So we each chatted up one and then we switched and we each chatted up the other. So it was kind of nice to have that round robin. Did you guys have that same experience?
Yeah, actually we did. Yeah, we were both talking to either Tim or Jake and then we'd switch it up. And yeah, it was, we were not bored at all.
All right, that's 50 to 60. Then what happens?
Let's see, it was around like 60, 62. Don't make fun of me, Simon. But whatever it was, I think that's when I took my first.
You. When do I ever make fun of you?
That was when I took my first break. And that was when I first like.
Nice.
Actually, this whole time, like I'm like grabbing things going. Like
That's 100K. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time I sat. Did I sat? Oh, I changed my shoes at one point. So I sat when okay, Simon. All right, don't make that face. Before then,
it's on Strava. People can actually go look it up. So let's. we had breaks before that. We had at least a 30-minute break at some point when we were eating fries, for example.
Oh, shoot, you're right. Okay, sorry. I forgot about the fries. Yep. So fries, we sat and ate the fries. Yep. And then after the fries, it was, until 62. 62 is when we took
Nora,
the next.
this is
I'm
your
sorry.
story, Nora. You tell it.
No, but you're right. Simon's right.
We'll
Okay.
go hide the strap. Let's
No,
go
no, no. I,
delete it
I don't
before
want.
it's too late.
I want everyone to see all the bits and pieces of it. That no, this is all about transparency. I did change my shoes because of sand and fit and feeling. I changed my socks because they got a little wet at one point
Sure.
as we were checking things out. But yeah, so 62 miles when I was like, I need to sit and break for a little bit.
Okay. A good
And so
solid break. How long was the
yeah,
break?
it was like 30, 40 minutes. It was a long
Yeah.
break.
Good.
Am I right, Simon?
Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And
But at
what'd you
that
do on the
point,
break?
I tried to refuel, so I tried to eat and drink. I switched to like pretzels, I think, and Coke. I realized I did not want cold ramen. I actually do think, Simon, I know we packed that was such a good idea, but I think I need hot ramen. So I probably should have asked for hot ramen. I think I needed like a hot meal because I did start to notice I got a little chilly. So while I was sitting, I realized I need to not sit. So I wanted some blanket. I think I needed to get cozy a little bit. So I got cozy for a little bit, but didn't sleep, just like felt it and warmed up a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. What did I say exactly, Simon? That was the first moment where I said something that was like, wouldn't it be nice to just go home after 100K? What did I actually say?
I think you said something like, I want to go home.
Yeah. And what did you say?
Well, I asked first if you were joking because that was a little bit out of the blue. I mean, at that time, I think we were like at mile 30. So it was not that
No, it was
far.
62. It was 62.
We
Yes.
have different recollection of when certain things happen. No, if you're describing the stop at mile 62, that's when we slept.
I thought that was mile. Was
I
that
could be
62
wrong.
that we slept? Oh, you're right. Maybe it was earlier. Okay. So now I'm merging. But you're right. There was one time, and this is the only time, and Simon said that I think you'd regret it.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, yes. So I got out. So then we got out of the car.
I think more specifically, I said first, I asked if you were joking because it was a little early. So I was surprised that you were saying that. I was like, are you serious? And then it's like, yeah, I'm serious. Like, I want to go home. Then I said, look, we'll do whatever you want to do, but I think you would regret it. And then you changed your mind and you said, you know what, fuck it, let's do it, no matter how long it takes. And I think that for me, that's when you decide that we're doing that no matter what.
Yeah. I think I mean, I can say this now, but like, who knows if I actually meant it. But like in my head, I was thinking like, I just wanted to say like, oh my God, wouldn't it be so nice to just go home right now? Like, because it's the tricky part about a local ultra is we could, right? We could just literally go home in 20 minutes and be done. But you're right, 62 is when we really slept, so it must have been earlier. But so then that was the only moment I said I wanted to quit, and then I don't think I ever brought it up again, right, Simon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. You
Okay,
didn't bring
thank
it
you.
up afterwards.
But you're right. So 62 was probably the time where I literally got under the blanket. So the bed that we made in the car, I got under the blanket and I took a nap.
Okay.
And I actually didn't set an alarm, which I was like, this is dangerous. And that probably was like 45 minutes, if not an hour. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Yeah, at least 1 hour.
Yeah, that was like an hour. And I remember the feeling of waking up and feeling like because it's not like we made it terribly comfortable for ourselves. We had like the bed that was like blocked by our cooler. So we like were in like the fetal position, but I still had a blanket and a pillow. I remember like, this is going to be really hard, but I have to get out. And so then I got out, and at that point onward, basically, I was walking. So that was when it was a slow move into the night. I was wearing my puffy winter hat. I was like wearing all the layers, and we were walking from then on. And
Besides you two, are there any weirdos in the park? Is that like 3 in the morning?
no, it was
Okay.
empty. Frogs, really, really loud frogs. Like there were a lot of ducks. There was like a very cute, like bird watching kind of place. The frogs were just ridiculously loud. That was about it, but no people.
Okay. That's kind of nice sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful. It was also like, okay, I mean, the sunset was great. The stars are out. The moon is out. This is beautiful. We just got to keep moving. I think at that point, it was just my mind just going, got to keep moving. And that's what we did until the sun came up.
Oh, it was also daylight savings, right? So you got an hour shorter of nighttime or something like that. Does that work like that at night? I think.
Like I tried to explain to her, it doesn't actually change the rotation of the Earth. So really, the only thing it's changing is
Oh,
what
you're
time it
right.
is. So no, it
Yeah.
didn't change much. We didn't notice, except that when we were done, it's like, oh wow, like it's already like 1 p.m. instead of 12. But no, it's the same amount of nighttime.
But an hour
Yeah.
less of recovery, as Simon would say.
Yeah,
Mm,
the weekend is
So,
1 hour shorter. But Nora,
the
you
weekend
didn't
is
even
one
tell
short.
us what it was the biggest challenge that you had for three
so
miles.
you're right. So when I was really cold, like right before this nap, I was shivering a lot, and I didn't realize how much I was shuddering, but I was like shuddering and drinking Coke. I just like keeping a human like bottle of like I keep just shaking myself with like carbonated beverages accidentally. No vomiting. But when we got up for this like next route, I started to hiccup. And sometimes you just like hiccup a little bit from
Mm.
drinking something too quickly. What I just thought it was a quick, and then suddenly I realized like, oh my God, I have like serious hiccups in these like 60, 70 miles, whatever section. And I was like, this is really annoying. And it was like those violent ones that like seize your
Mm.
throat. And it was
Mm.
already, and then so then I realized like, this sucks. I hope this ends. And we were both like, damn, like, when you had the hiccups, like you never realize when it stops either. It just feels like it goes on forever. This felt like it went on forever. How many miles did it go for, Simon? It went for
Yeah, at least
3
3 miles and like
miles
at least an hour.
an hour.
So it lasted a long, long, long time, and it gets painful at some point.
Actually, I was going there. Is there any residual effects of it? Like when you were like eating breakfast the next day, did you like there was a? Can you feel it from swallowing or something?
So nothing the next day. Luckily, it quickly recovered. But while it was happening, it was so painful. Like anything I put down my throat, like it
Mm.
irritated a little bit. And I was like, well, this sucks. So as we were walking, I'm like, this is the perfect time. Like my head reswitched. I wasn't thinking like old Javelina on like Nora. I was like, okay, I'm walking. I'm slowing down. I can fuel properly. Like this is steady. Let me eat and drink. And it was very painful at first to do so.
Wow.
And it feels
And that
like
was yeah.
at some point it felt like you were almost desperate. Like, man, like this is gonna last until the end of that race, and like there was like 25 miles to go. Like there was
Mm.
still like a solid 8 hours to go. And it's like, God, it's not stopping. And you
Yeah.
always, you're hopeful when like you have one and then nothing happened for a little bit. It's like this is the last one. This is the last one. And then yeah, it lasted way too long. It sounded very painful. I was
Did you try
feeling
the
very sorry.
like? Do you scare hiccups away? I think you scare hiccups away. Did you try all the wives' tales of like trying to scare the hiccups away or anything?
I didn't do any of that. I think I was scared shitless the fact that I had these freaking hiccups that I couldn't get
Mm.
rid of. Actually, no, but I didn't think about that. I was thinking of like peanut butter. Like I was like, I know there's like some
Mm.
things you can do that like, but I was like, I don't have any. I remember just thinking, I was like, I don't have any of the things I need. I don't know what to
Mm.
do, and so I just was tracking my hiccups. And wildly, We did catch my final hiccup. Because we had nothing else to focus on. We were
Mm.
solely focusing on like the rhythm of my hiccups. And Simon was filming at one point. He caught the hiccup, and I remember like he was watching, and we were both waiting. Like, when's the next one coming? And we both just didn't say a word. It took us a while to finally admit, like, I think I witnessed the last
Mm.
one. But it was at least an hour of hiccups. It was brutal.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. I think it was the shivering plus the drinking Coke. I was just like creating whatever.
Yeah, it's
That
hard
was
to say
not.
because it was immediately after getting out of the car. So
Yeah,
immediately from going to like the
Mm.
warm blanket to outside, bang, it
yeah.
happened.
But so that was tough, but kept moving. I knew I was in like the tough part of it, right? You're like mile 75, you still have so much to go, but you're not like, oh, I'm so close to going. And I was really looking
Mhm.
forward to that feeling. And so we kept moving. The sun came up. We were already into the 80s while the sun was coming up. But I was still like, I was slow. I was not feeling like I could run. I knew in my head I was like, I probably should try to run, but I still couldn't do it. But I was like, it's fine, just keep going, don't stop.
But actually, the worst part of the race, or the worst part of this run, rather, was the second day, and how beaten down and hot I was for the final like 20 miles. The sun had come up, we were already into the 80s, and I was just really looking forward to like the moment where you have this blissful, like, I'm almost there. And I've had that at races where like you've 10 miles left or 5 miles left, and you're like, all right, I just have to keep going. I was just waiting for that moment, and it got hotter and hotter. My feet hurt more and more. I didn't feel like fueling anymore. And at that point, I was sleep deprived. I was tired. I was done. And that was like my weakest moment. To Simon. I mean, it's bad. I was like, I don't know why it kept happening, but my face kept wanting to cry. Like, I wasn't actually just like crying lots of tears, but I kept like an ugly like baby cry. Like, I just want this to be over. Like, I couldn't stop. Like, I knew it sounded so ridiculous, as this is like the morning, there are little children running around, and like people are back to like just enjoying this place, and I'm like just trudging through with my vest, and I was just like, this is so bad, this hurts so much. I'm just like, and so Simon really had to pace me those last 10 miles in particular. It was, hot. It was, we had hours to go still because I wasn't running. Like, and even so, like, even running that, like, it still would have been like 2 hours, even if I was running a little. Like, I kept waiting to feel good. And so I want to put it out there for anyone. Sometimes you just don't feel good all the way to the end. And I was not expecting to have to push and persevere. I did not at one single point during this day, I give up. Right, Simon?
No, absolutely not. You were definitely in a dark space. Like, I was really, I don't know that I was pacing. I was definitely cheerleading and, trying to be positive and saying nice things, but you were in a dark space. And I think it happens to all of us, and that's pretty normal. You've seen me in these spaces. Sometimes, the last 4 miles of a race, like, Brian, I don't know how you were feeling finishing Run Rabbit Run, coming down that stupid mountain, but you're kind of done, but at the same time, you're really not. And it's really painful, and it's like, I just want to be done right now, but I'm not done. And like, I feel you were kind of in that mindset of like, I know I'm gonna finish, but like, this sucks, like, this is not fun. And yeah, that was painful, but you pushed through. You were clearly not in a mood to give up. That's very true. Very,
the
very
difference
true.
between Run Rabbit Run and that 6-mile descent on the ski mountain service road and running around a 0.6-mile park is that you could just get in your car and go home.
Yep.
Which would be easy. I mean, so that takes a lot
Nobody
more
would
mental
know.
stamina.
Nobody would know.
Nobody would know.
What was even worse was that we were both using our watches, and as you know, we have no clue what's the actual distance that we do, because at some point, we go left, we go right, we go to the car, we go shit, and like, you don't know, so you need to rely on your watch. But we have to watch, so of course one watch says more than the other, and towards the end it was about the 2 miles difference. So then you have to choose, are we doing 102 and 100, or are we doing 198? I was also kind of, Nora was not excited about that, but we made it to like doing like the watch that was the lowest. We went all the way to 100.2 to make sure that Strava also wouldn't be a bitch about it and wouldn't cut, to be like, actually, you just ran 99.9, which would have been terrible. But you're right. There's nothing concrete about reaching a finish line. The car is there. We can just stop. Like, there's no reason.
Yeah, I think there was a point though where I was like, I can't like pause this. Like I can't do this. Like, I have to do it now. Like, I just have to, and it's so hard.
Yeah.
But I have to keep going. And you're right. There was like a salt in the wound that Simon's watch was 2 miles ahead of mine. and we've talked about, like, I get pissed. I hate that I get pissed about it, but like Bighorn,
She was pissed at me. And I was saying, like, look, Nora, we're actually gonna do the same distance. Like, I should be equally pissed at the situation because my watch is saying I should be done right now. But I won't stop and say like, well, my watch says 100. You gotta keep going. So I was equally annoyed by it, but I didn't want to voice it too much and like add to the negativity on that one.
Yeah.
But you also told me then the 0.2 thing. So it was two things. It was we had to go to. I was like, and I mean, Simon was doing it. He was really trying to be supportive, and like huge kudos to Simon. He walked every single step with me. He ran every single step with me. He paced me while doing 100 miles, which even though he is better shape than me, that's still really freaking hard. And I really, really appreciate that. And
yeah, it was nice. Thanks.
yeah,
It was nice to do it together.
But you're right. Like I was like, no, I have to. If my watch has to say 100. But then you later told me you're like, well, we should really do 100.2 because sometimes Strava rides like rounds down, and I was like, what is this shit? Are you kidding
But
me?
it's real.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I like another like crybaby face. I was like, I can't, I don't, and I was like, I'm not mad at you, but like, I hate that we have to do this. Like, I just want to be done. And it was, so we like the
She was
final,
cursing Strava. She was,
I was cursing all of it. This is at the very end. This is 99. You know, I was like, I went through a phase of like, I just can't talk because I keep making this ugly baby cry and I can't do it. So I just need to shut up a little bit. But it was at that final, whatever point, point four, we took our way out of the park and Simon measured how long it would be to go like a quick out and back to the car. And to reach 0.2, and I was just walking in the heat and like hating it. As we were on the way back, that was the first time I was like, okay, I just have to get to the car. That's it. And Simon's like, yay, like you doing it. And I was like, I was not happy still. It wasn't until like it finally was like 100.2 and we stopped and high-fived. And I was like, okay, I did it. Yay.
Funny enough, I'm looking at your Strava and it says 100.19.
He was right. Yes, I hate
So
it.
it shorted you a little bit, yes.
God damn you,
sometimes
Strava.
can do a 0.1, so yeah. Just gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, and as much as you say kudos to me, kudos to Nora to finishing her first 100 mile without proper training, and it's not for lack of trying, but again, 3 months without running, you go backward a lot in your physical fitness. I always say like take the time to rest and heal, that's important, but 3 months without running is a big deal, and to come back and only have 3 months to prepare for that, an impromptu race that you have to be self-motivated to do by yourself and to go all the way to 100.2 because of reason really is really impressive. So really, really proud of her.
Thank you.
And the contrast also that I think is quite shocking is like we talked about Andrea that helped us in the middle with the fries, and Tim and Jake that paced us at the beginning of the evening, and Nora says the night, but I think that's actually interesting because it was definitely like from 7:30 to probably 9:30 or 10:30, so really appreciate, but it was more evening than like the middle of the night.
Yes.
But then you had the two extreme. We had Rob that paced us at the beginning where we were all jovial and joking and mostly running. And then you had Scott who came within the last, 5 miles, which was not our happiest moment at all. That was such a contrast, but we appreciate everyone's help and support in that.
Yes, definitely congrats, Nora, on your first 100. Welcome to the club. We've been waiting.
Thank you. I feel very lucky to be here. It is no joke.
Hey, so no fanfare, no finish line, no fanfare, no barbecue, no post-race barbecue. It sounds like there might be a buckle in the works, but not at the finish line. So what does it look like when you get done with 100 miles out of the back of your car? I mean, like, do you just get in the car and drive home?
Yes, that's exactly. I think
one of us was driving. Yes, that is true. And one of us had to clean the car afterwards. Yes, that is true. That's how it works.
But that said, a part of what Simon tried to do to help me get in a positive space was share what he does, which is like think about what we're doing after. And he kept buttering up what we were doing after. First, it was like, you're going to have a hot shower. You're going to like take your shoes and socks off. You're getting comfy clothes, feel clean, get in bed. And then he's like, I'll do whatever I'll take care of you. Like he was like really like increasing how great it was going to be when we finished to like help make me feel great.
And it was all a lie. I don't know where she's going with that. I did exactly how I said I would.
No, you did. It's like it wasn't that's exactly what happened. So that post race was him was me jumping in the car, immediately taking off shoes and socks and seeing how there was so much freaking sand, which was surprising. But I was like not even thinking. I started to like answer people on my phone in a haze. Got home and like Simon was like, just go straight to the shower. I'm like, it's great. I only have energy to brush my teeth, shower, and get right into bed. And meanwhile, he took care of the car. He took care of like all the like bringing stuff back in, and I got into bed and we did takeout and Netflix for the rest and bed the rest of the day. That was exactly what we did.
Yeah, and to be fair, like I mean, as much as like I think I did a lot on that one. Usually Nora is the one helping a lot with these things. Usually I do a little bit, but obviously like she's the one like really supporting. So I felt like it was the right time to give back. And I did actually have a white lie in all of my story. I was telling her I would do you a back massage and everything, and I was like, I won't need to do too much. You will fall asleep snoring. I don't need to be too worried about it. So I just did a little bit, and then she was like having her cute little snore, and I was like, "We're good to go." That was the plan.
I'm glad you came clean, Simon. That this was your time to help out because I was going to call you out on that, but you beat me to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly think that I support, when you race, but proportionally, I'm racing much more frequently than she is. So of course, like I want to give back as much as possible when I can, and I think that was the time to do it. Even though I was obviously tired too, I was up for 30 hours racing, and well, racing is not a word, but like running, doing an ultra. But yeah, if I could help, that was great.
50, I don't know, maybe more than 50 hours, but just about 48, a little more than 48 hours removed from finishing and getting that shower and some Netflix and takeout. How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I would say pretty good. Tight still. If I'm sitting for too long, I still hobble as I try to get up and stretch out. I think the biggest things have been blisters, but I work from home. So I'm not wearing shoes for a few days. I'm just like keeping things open and airy. So some tightness in my hamstring, but ankle is still feeling okay. I think I've had like a heat rash on my feet, which is sort of interesting. But other than that, and like some sleepiness yesterday, but been back to work both days, trying to be actively recovering. So moving around the house, cleaning, doing the things, working, but just a little sleepier at other times. But body is coming back. Day 2, I'm okay and walking. Looking forward to maybe taking an actual stroll outside tomorrow.
With those open-toed shoes, I bet.
With my chacos, yes, like with my sandals.
Nice. Well, congrats again, Nora. Really impressive. Just a few months ago, I would, from our conversation just a few months ago, I would not have thought that you would have ran 100 on the first week of March. So congrats.
Thank you. It was a blast.
Are you going to do it again?
I think the lessons that I'm taking from this is it's possible. I can do it. Like when you've done the distance, doesn't mean I'm never going to DNF again, but it feels really good to know I can do it. Like it feels that's a huge confidence boost. Like after injury, after health stuff, like you're just like fuck yeah, my body can do this. It can do some epic stuff. Like our bodies can do some epic shit. It is more accessible than you think. I was slower than I was at Javelina, like intentionally, and like I didn't let that bother me. Like it's your mindset is huge. Learn your lessons in your races, get support, ask for support. But one of the biggest lessons I had was it can be really fucking painful all the way to the end. And that was intense. That was pretty intense to have that amount of pain all the way to the end. Will I do another 100-miler again? Absolutely. And it will, and I'm not in a rush to do it quite yet after those brutal 10 miles. But Simon had mentioned as we were going that there are actually also a lot of really great things about ultras that I was missing from doing the self-supported thing. Like I was missing like the joy of the community and racing and volunteer and like the epic adventure. And, there are a lot of pieces that are really motivating that I didn't have that could be helpful in like navigating some of the challenges too. But so will I do it again? As always, I'm long-winded in my answer, which is, yeah, you're right. I'm going to do it again. We'll see when, and in no rush at this time.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate your openness and your willingness to share your story. You guys sound like you had a great adventure, and kudos to both of you, quite honestly, for sticking it out. I know my wife and I could not run 100 miles together.
You know, that was, I will say, like, I remember thinking, and I said at one point to Simon, if I really am in such a dark place that I actually feel like giving up, give me my headphones. Like, give me my headphones. Like, let's, if I need to dig in deep, give me some music. And I think I can push with that. But yeah, I can't believe we did 30 hours nonstop together without music. That's something, Simon. I don't know how we did that, but we did that.
We did
Just
that.
every step. What'd you say?
You did.
I just said we did that. I was not saying anything. Yeah, we did it. No, but it's I agree, and I think people react differently under, like, when you're tense like that, and just how you were towards the end. Like, you're not in a good place, and if I had been like that too, I think, like, we would have potentially been in a conflict a little bit, because we're in dark space. But it worked out great. It was fine. It was a harder one than Black Canyon, I would say, but that's also because it was not like an adventure. It felt more like a challenge than an adventure, if that makes sense. And I think that's the part that is really missing, is the community and the adventure aspect, rather than pure, like, doing the distance and just doing these small loops, which, like, you need to not think too much about it at some point, otherwise you feel really, really dumb. But spending time together is always nice, even if it's difficult times.
Yeah. I will say, if anyone listening to this, it's like interested or feels like it's too far fetched, like coming back from injuries, coming back with just a little bit of training, 30-ish miles a week that I have, you could do an ultra around your park. You could do it. And it can be pretty cool.
Just make sure you have a toilet.
Make sure you have a toilet. That's a great point.
Yes.
Thanks so much, guys, for coming on this evening. Thanks again, Nora. Always great to see you, and we look forward to talking soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.